Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to New York City's FC's press conference as we get started and get ready for the 2025 MLS season. This afternoon, we have Sporting Director David Lee, followed by Head Coach Pascal Jansen at 5 p.m. As a friendly reminder, when called upon, please state your name and your outlet. We'll get started with Scott.
Hey, Mr. Lee, how are you? Happy New Year. Scott Church and Stream Punk Soccer. Talk a little bit about the decision to go away from Coach Cushing and go in direction of Pascal Jansen and where you see 2025 going. Thank you.
Yeah, hey Scott, Happy New Year. So I think, as we get to the end of every season, I think there's a natural point to evaluate where we are as an organization, where we are as a club, and most importantly, how we see what we think is the best path to move the organization forward in the coming years. And so, as we ended the 2024 season, as we evaluate everything as we do all the time, we felt like there would be an opportunity if we were to make a change at head coach that we could see an improved performance level, and we could maybe see some improvement also in the development of some of our young players, which ultimately will also help us win more games and hopefully show a little bit more consistency than we saw in the 2024 season. So then once we made that decision, we felt like it was the right thing to do was to make that decision as quickly as we possibly could at the end of the season, to then give us enough opportunity to go through an extensive coaching search to make sure that we could bring the best candidate forward. And we're really pleased that we were able to get Pascal appointed and hired and able to start working with the group early into the preseason.
Chris?
Hey, David, Chris Cameron from the outfield. I'm kind of expanding on that. You mentioned the coaching search that ended with the hire of Pascal. Can you kind of talk into how that search went along, how Pascal was identified, and ultimately who made the decision to hire him?
Yeah, so part of the work of I think any sporting director is to always be aware of potential opportunities. So even though you're hopefully never in the need to make coaching changes, coaches can need to be changed because similar to maybe when Ronnie left, and because they get recruited from another club. And so part of our work is to constantly monitor coaches. And so Pascal was somebody that actually been on our radar from City Football Group for a very long time. And so we hadn't had any conversations with him, but he was somebody that from his profile we felt like was really interesting, given what he'd done at AZ Alkmaar in terms of his performance on the pitch, his development of young talent, the style of football that he played. And so as once we made the decision to part ways with Nick, we then went to our database of coaches that we had been tracking and following. And then we went through obviously getting a lot of inbound interest in the role, given who we are in MLS, and being part of City Football Group was really attractive to an awful lot of candidates. And then we went through shortlisting from there. Pascal was part of that process as somebody that we felt like would be interesting to speak to. It's important to say that Pascal was in a really good job prior to coming to New York, and was in a good job. And so we wanted to make sure that this was something that he really wanted to do. And I was really pleased and proud after we'd spoken to him and had those conversations that moving to New York and being part of New York City FC was something that he was just as interested in doing as we were interested in bringing him to the club. And so ultimately that decision is mine. It's my job to make a recommendation to both City Football Group on the football technical side, and then our ownership group. We have an immense amount of support and collaboration from City Football Group. So the interview process is run collaboratively between both New York and City Football Group because we work so closely together. But ultimately then, as we go through that process, it's incumbent upon me to make a recommendation to City Football Group and to our owners of the direction that I think we should go.
Alex Windley?
Hi, David. This is Alex Windley from AM New York. When you first hired Pascal, what stood out to you the most about his coaching philosophy and leadership style, and what made him the right fit for NYCFC right now? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think there were a number of factors that made Pascal interesting. And so, as we went into this coaching search, we tried to be really clear on some of the criteria that we were going to look for in a potential head coach, and probably to summarize those, it was we feel like we've got a really talented group of players that we think is going to can be competitive to win trophies over the coming years. And so we wanted a head coach that had experience and experience winning, and Pascal's got that in his prior jobs. We have assembled a roster that has a lot of young talent, but also talent that we think can improve and develop. And so we wanted also to find somebody that had trust and faith in playing young players, wanted to develop young talent as part of a winning philosophy. And again, Pascal, the track record Pascal in young player development is outstanding. In particular, AZ Alkmaar, and the number of players that left AZ Alkmaar to play at the highest levels in Europe is something that was also really attractive for us. And then third, from a sort of characteristic side, was the style of play. We've assembled a roster. We have a way of playing that we believe, from ownership group all the way down, that we would like a New York City FC team to play. And we think it's really important that any head coach is philosophically aligned to those ideals. I will say that every head coach we've had, from Patrick to Dome to Ronnie, Kush, and now Pascal, there's always slight tweaks in style, and those things come out as we learn about the coach and as they get used to the players and they put their demands on the players. But I think philosophically, we want to be a team that controls the game via possession, which means we're going to need to be aggressive out of possession. We want to create chances and score lots of goals. And so, for us, Pascal, has proven to play in a style that is similar to what we would like to see in our team. And so that felt like there was a really good overlap and mesh from that perspective as well. And then you mentioned, leadership style. Head coach is the most important person in the building. Here I am at CFA every single day, and he needs to set the tone for the environment. And I think, Pascal, again, has got almost 200 games of experience of running a team. And he's got a really good demeanor with the players. He's really demanding. He has really high standards, but equally, he's got a really good feel and a way to want to get to know the players and be close to the players and understand them as people, which we believe is also, I know Pascal believes as well, is really critical to maximizing their development.
We're going to go in the room. Glenn?
Hey, David, Glenn Crooks. So every one of your responses, you talked about young players and their development. So I would imagine, as you're evaluating your head coach, that's going to be something you look at specifically. But the players that come to mind are Julian Fernandez, Augustine Ojeda, Ilinic, and maybe Mijatovic if he comes back. So are you looking at maybe how those players in particular develop?
I think we're looking at how the whole roster develops, to be totally honest. There's a focus on young players. Of course, we have assembled and we've acquired what we believe is a group of really talented young players. I think you didn't mention, Maximo Carrizo, Zidane Yanez, Johnny Shaw, Drew Baera, that are produced from the academy and are just as important that we maximize their development as well. But I think, it is all within the context of, this is our approach to how we believe we can be most successful by winning. We want to win trophies. And we believe part of that strategy from our ownership and from everybody connected with New York City and City Football Group is to do that via developing young talent. The better players you can develop, the more chance you are of winning games of football. And so, developing players is a core component for us, and absolutely will be part of how a head coach is assessed, is through the work that they do and how they develop all of the players that are in the squad, not just the young players, because more senior players can develop as well. But that is a core focus of what we need our coaching environment to look like, is how those players are going to improve. Because we're almost never going to sign perfectly finished players, and they're going to need to improve and develop. And that's something that we are looking forward to seeing during this season and beyond.
We'll go with Oliver.
Hi, thank you. This is Oliver Strand with Hudson River Blue. You've been pretty quiet this transfer window. That's in contrast to the winter window last year when you were quite active, and then in the summer you were quite quiet again. What can we expect this transfer window? Will there be some incoming players?
Yeah, we certainly expect so. I think part of the maybe slow or quiet, as you described it, is, one thing we want to do is we want to give Pascal an opportunity to work with the group. In MLS, it doesn't make sense to acquire players that then block the pathway of somebody that might emerge as somebody really important for Pascal. And so, we've obviously been looking at players and we have targets in mind, and the window's still open for quite a long time for us right now. So we certainly anticipate signing players before the close of the window. But I do think, in my experience, having gone through, a couple of coaching changes as sporting director, there are always players that emerge when you change a head coach that become really important players that maybe you hadn't expected. And similarly, there are players that maybe had a really important role under a previous head coach that may not under the new head coach. And so, trying to give Pascal the opportunity to work with a group and see, get his feel for the players, and ultimately try and also get some experience in MLS and get a better feel for that, I think is an important part. We've got a pretty complete squad. We've lost, in terms of really important players that played maybe significant minutes last season. We've had obviously James depart. We had Christian McFarland. We had Jovan leave, and so we've got out of those players, we've got 3 open roster spots as it stands right now. And so, we still have quite a full roster when you look at it in totality. And so we're trying to be really strategic with making sure that the additions that we do make are the players that are going to come in and improve what we think is already a strong and deep overall roster.
We'll go with Michael Ender.
Hey, Dave, it's Mike Andrew from Blue City Radio. Thanks for the time. Jovan Mijatovic's loan seemed kind of abrupt. Can you just tell us your side of the story of what happened there?
Yeah, I think probably wasn't abrupt from our side. We had an honest conversation with Jovan at the end of last season. I think it's quite clear, the year didn't go how Jovan expected, how we expected last season. And, those things are unfortunately part of the life in professional sports, and and it didn't work last season how we all hoped it would when we signed Jovan. There are a lot of factors involved in that, but ultimately, Jovan's a 19-year-old boy still with a huge amount of potential, and my job is to try to make sure that we ensure that he has a pathway to continue developing. And so we had to look at our roster and say, okay, do we really see him playing, starting the season as our number 9, based on where we were at the end of last season? And probably the answer to that was no, given how well Alonso had done at the end of last season. And so therefore it made sense for all parties to try to find a solution that will enable him to play more regular football. And so, we think this opportunity in Leuven is a good one for him. It's a loan through the summer so he can get adjusted and adapted. I think it's also fair to say that Jovan expressed an interest to be back in Europe as well. It's his first time moving away from home. For a 19-year-old, those things are not easy. And in particular right now, I think there's a desire, and of course we all want the instant success, and we do have to remember sometimes these are young men, young people, and we've got to help support them and on their journey and development. And so we felt like it was the right thing to try to give him a platform where he maybe had a better chance of playing more regularly. We've invested significant money in him. We still believe he has an absolutely fantastic future and potential in world football. And our job now is to try to help him on the next steps in his journey. We felt like a loan would be the right situation, maybe not hugely dissimilar to the decision that we took last summer when Thales Magno wasn't playing significantly for us, trying to find a situation where he could go and play. And so far that's been a good thing for him in Brazil to get those minutes and get that opportunity to get himself going again after a little period of stagnation. And it's probably similar to how we felt with Jovan.
We're going to go with Adam and then back to Glenn in the room.
Hey, David, this is Adam with Post 90. Can you just speak a bit to how you and the club measure the success of a manager, both on the field and beyond?
Yeah, I think, we're trying to take into account absolutely everything that happens. And that's a difficult, maybe too broad of an answer. But, the environment of the training ground, the work that we do, the connection that a coach has with the players, with the staff, of course, results are a critical part of that. In my opinion, I felt like we were a really inconsistent group last year, and we saw periods of what was an absolutely top performing group in MLS, particularly that period, April, May, where we won 8 of 9. I said to a few people, we got 24 points in those 9 matches in April and May. And we got 26 points in the other 24 matches in the whole season, or 25 matches in the whole season. So that was just a sign of real inconsistency. And so that results are absolutely part of it. And I just believe that, and so we're trying to take into account all of those factors. And there is a soft side, there is a gut feel, there is an environmental factor that you can only really sense and feel if you're in the environment every single day. And you try and take all of that into account. You try and take into account the resources that they've had available. So, in 2023, we did not make the playoffs, but we didn't change head coach at the end of that season because we know that we were going through a period of rebuilding that team, and we didn't feel like that was the right decision at that point when we considered all of those factors. And as we made that decision at the end of 2024, we came to a different conclusion.
Glenn?
David, I wonder what your feeling is about this new cash for player trades within the league. And you talked about you have 3 open roster spots and you anticipate you might sign a player or players before the close of the window. Do you think this will be a factor at all? And what do you think of it?
I think it's a great development. I actually think it's one of the bigger rule changes that MLS has seen in the last few years. I don't think that we collectively as a league will see the full effect of the rule change, and probably for another window or two as teams get familiar with it. I think we're all still learning exactly how it works because it's been implemented a little bit on the fly, but we've already started to see some transactions happening with it. I think the biggest thing was in MLS, there was essentially a group of players that were completely unobtainable to move inside MLS because you could only trade your allocation money, and every team has a limited pot of allocation money. Now you can open the door to essentially recruit from inside MLS that really was quite challenging before to assess the right value, how much allocation money you had. And now being able to use cash for those players, I think it opens up obviously possibility for DP investments and acquiring DPs from other teams, potentially that was not possible before because those values you could never acquire with GAM. But I also think it opens up possibilities for players within the salary cap as well. So we'll certainly explore it. We're certainly looking at it to see if there's a right fit within the league. Obviously, there's a benefit to those players being able to come in ready to go, experience with the league already. But ultimately, we still got to find the right value to be able to bring those players into the group.
Alec?
Hey, David. Good to speak to you again. Alec Kossoff, 5 Borough Footy. Forgive me, my question's a little bit long-winded. Recently on the American Soccer Analytics podcast, the head of FC Dallas spoke about U22 signings being amongst the most difficult signings to make just based on analytics. I would say NYCFC has had successes and failures as it pertains to first team minutes for these signings. So I wanted to ask generally, what is NYCFC's strategy as it pertains to these signings? And specifically, do you see them more as an immediate impact investment or more long-term investment?
Yeah, good question. And so when you acquire any young talent, there is inherently, in my opinion, slightly more risk because young people develop at different rates, and so there is slightly more risk associated with signing younger players. So I probably wouldn't disagree with the sentiment that U22s can be risky investments. I think there also can be huge positives and upsides to those players, and the opportunity to develop a young player, to sign a player that previously probably you wouldn't have been able to afford, or you wouldn't have been able to afford within a salary cap, now is available to you with the U22 initiative. That opens up a group of players to acquire that you hope and you believe can improve and develop and become even more important players for you over the longer term. So our strategy is we want to acquire the best talent that we possibly can, using as many roster mechanisms and using as much financial resources as I'm given to be able to spend between the discretionary investments possible to try to bring as many good players. And we do believe, and I would say probably sort of philosophically, organizationally from City Football Group, across the group, we believe in acquiring and developing young talent. And so the U22 initiative is a way that we believe that you can acquire good young talent, develop it, and ultimately that can help you on the pitch, and it can help you from a business perspective in generating revenue for our business that I'm also asked to do each year. And so that's something that is that we believe is an important avenue. Of course, there is elements of risk with any signing, but maybe slightly more so when you talk about young players. But it's our job to do the work and due diligence to try to reduce that risk as much as we possibly can. And as you say, there's been some really good successes with some of those players already. I believe we have two really talented U22 players in our roster right now in Juli and Agustin. And I believe hopefully we'll see important roles for them coming up this season.
Final question, we'll go with Matt.
Hey, David, Matt Mangum, Hudson River Blue. Of course, you mentioned the team, pretty much all the players returning, the starters from last year, except for James Sands, you could say. So what's the general expectation for Pascal in his first year with this team, just in MLS and in Leagues Cup and everything else?
Yeah, so I think expectation that we discussed with Pascal, our organization expectation is to be competitive, to win as many times as much as we possibly can in as many competitions as possible. We know in MLS that's not easy. I've said this to the staff repeatedly, but the last 3 MLS Cup winners did not qualify for the playoffs the year before they won. It is inherently difficult to be sort of that consistently successful that you win every year. Even if you look at the top 7 teams in the Eastern Conference from 2023 to 2024, there was only 3 teams that were in the top 7 both years. So just repeating and maintaining that consistency is not easy. We've shown from 2016 to 2022 a really high degree of consistency from 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I think one year we finished 5th in 2020 in COVID. So we've seen a real sort of high level of consistency, and that's what we want to get back to. If we're consistently in the playoffs, you give yourself a chance to win trophies, and ultimately we want to win trophies for our fans. So the expectation of what we want to do is we want to be competitive to win as many trophies. What that looks like with US Open Cup, what that looks like with Leagues Cup, I think will depend on where the roster is, injuries, all those pieces. As I say, we've got a group of really talented young players that also need opportunities to develop and play. I think we saw last year, maybe the best example being Christian, of a player who before the season maybe nobody really knew, but when he came into the team, I think he showed how ready he was to be able to play at MLS level, and in Leagues Cup he played a lot. And so I think I think that's going to be a really good opportunity for us also to give some opportunities, or for some of the young players to earn opportunities to get minutes. But ultimately, we want to try and win all those titles, and the job is to try and work with the resources that we have and the resources we get given to be able to build a strong roster as we possibly can.
Great, thank you very much, David.
I see a lot of hands.
Hi, Pascal. Andrew Lee with Hudson River Blue. Thank you for taking the time.
Hi, Andrew. You're very welcome.
I guess first question, what's your vision for how you want the team to play, I guess, like stylistically and just like the personality that you want your NYCFC squad to have this year?
Well, a big part of me being here is based on what I've seen so far, preparing myself how the team was playing before I was in charge. So there are quite a few similarities, to be honest. But basically what I said to my guys once I got in, we have to take it to another level in order to be more successful. So looking for a higher intensity is something that I'm aiming for. A little bit more flexibility in how we defend and how we attack. And obviously try to get more stability into the team. So that's basically it.
Chris?
Hi, Pascal. Chris Campbell from the outfield. You came on, and 3 assistant coaches from last year are still here with Leon, Rob, and Mehdi. What benefits do you have? Having them on from the previous regime, as well as whose decision was it to keep them, and are you planning on adding any more coaches to your staff? Thanks.
Well, it's been a joint decision. Let me state that I'm very happy with the 3 of them staying with me in my staff. They help me out a lot. Obviously, they have the knowledge about the squad, and they have the knowledge about the league. So that is going to be very helpful for me to understand it even better than I understand it at this moment. Of course, we're always in talks because if we find that we should add somebody else to the team of coaches, that is amongst the possibilities for maybe down the road in the future.
Scott?
Hey, Coach, how are you? Scott Church and Stream Punk Soccer. Thanks
Hi,
for taking
Scott.
the time out.
No problem. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Our pleasure. Talk a little bit about the decision to come stateside in this particular case and what you find personally similar or different coaching and playing versus say, Europe. Thanks.
Well, I'm still trying to find my place, if you will, considering what the different angles might be. Coming to this part of the world is quite easy, to be honest, because I think that the MLS will be one of the major leagues in due time, and my choice coming here in this period gives me a head start in order to get acquainted with this league. As I said, I think it's going to be one of the biggest leagues in the world in the near future. So me being here as a coach with the experience that I'm bringing with me from Europe is going to help me to a certain point. But getting the understanding of this league in this phase, when everything is about to happen, looking at World Club teams, the World Cup for the countries, our new stadium coming in 27, I thought it would be best to get a head start.
We'll go with Glenn Crooks in the room.
Hey, so when we spoke to David earlier, he put a pretty big emphasis on the younger players' development. He wants the team to develop, but in particular the younger players. Maybe that was one of the reasons he was attracted to bringing you in, especially with what you did at AZ. Can you discuss that a little bit? Because you have some teenagers who were inconsistent last year, didn't get a lot of time in some cases, and what you've seen so far.
Well, I've been very happy with the things I've seen so far. Of course, this has been a topic that we've discussed in the whole process of becoming the new head coach. Yes, it's true. I have a track record of working with youngsters and was able to help these guys get to the next level and even beyond that once they had their backpack filled in the Eredivisie. But inconsistency comes along with young kids, young players. So getting them to a level where they have more consistency in their game and in their development is also a factor of time. It needs time. So the environment within our club is perfect as far as I can tell now. But with the things that I have in my system, in my ideas, I hope I can help them out and bring them to the next level.
Is there a certain amount of balance between the patience you need to have, but also, you're trying to get them to a point where they could effectively help you win games?
Yeah, but that's always the tension there, because that's the spectrum that we work in. High standards, high demands is part of the process. On the other hand, players will always find their own development path. And the path that has been created within New York is a good path, but the time factor will always be there. And hopefully with my help and creating a slightly different program where necessary, we can speed things up. On the other hand, last season they were young. This season they're still young, but they have the advantage of last season already in their backpack. So it's going to help them during this season again. You're welcome.
Going back to the Zoom, we'll go with Alex, followed by Oliver.
Hi, Pascal. Alex Winley, AM New York.
Hi, Alex.
Beyond tactics, teams often thrive when they have a strong collective mindset. What kind of mentality do you want this team to embody throughout the season? Thanks.
Interesting question, because we addressed this topic also in earlier team meetings with the squad over the past 2-3 weeks. I would like to call it that we have a bulletproof mindset, always being aggressive, going out to win the games, obviously, but a bulletproof mindset makes you, in my opinion, it makes you work from a standard that you feel like you can handle anything in any stadium under any circumstance. So that's what I'm looking for.
Oliver, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is Oliver Strand with Hudson River Blue.
Hi, Oliver.
Hi. The Coachella Invitational starts tomorrow afternoon, and the games will be televised and live stream, so we'll be able to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
What can we expect to see on the field? Are you a head coach who will try to play his best 11 players in order to kind of generate that chemistry and cohesion, or is this more of like an open tryout where a lot of players will be given the opportunity to show their stuff in India?
Well, let me be clear on that. It's not an open tryout. Far from that. We are in almost our fourth week of preseason. So I've been watching the team closely over the past few weeks, and it's not a tryout. We have to be ready in order to perform at our best from the 22nd of February and onwards. So everything that we've been doing so far has been done in the spirit of that. Tomorrow will be the first game in Coachella. As you know, we've already played 2 games in our other camp. So it's just an extension of where we left the first camp going into the second camp, and we're trying to improve our game in order to be ready for the 22nd.
We'll go with Alec and then Michael.
Hey, Coach. Welcome to New York.
Thank
Good
you.
to see. I just wanted to say, based on watching a fair amount of your tape from AZ Alkmaar, it seems you require a lot from every player, but obviously a lot specifically from your midfield. This season, NYCFC lost its midfielder and defensive player of the year, James Sands.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, there hasn't been news of replacement yet. Do you have any specific plans to address this hole? Or is there any player that immediately has stood out to you?
Well, of course, it's a tough one to take if James is leaving the club, but going to the Bundesliga is a big step for him and a big compliment for the guys who've been working with him in New York. On the other hand, we know for a fact that we have to focus on what needs to be done in order to restore in midfield, but it always opens the door for other players that are still with the team. So we're trying our best in order to mold this midfield and get the play style across and the ideas that I have for midfield players like you addressed from previous clubs that you've seen my teams play. And that takes work, and they're putting in the effort and the work. So hopefully we can see some of it tomorrow already in the next game that we're going to play. But you'll have to address this question concerning players who might be coming in or not to David Lee, because he's the one who's responsible for that aspect.
Michael, go ahead.
Hi, Pascal. Mike Andrew from Blue City Radio. Thanks
Hi.
for the time.
Hi, Mike.
Based on your analysis of watching the team film and then being with them, what do you think is the low-hanging fruit for this team, and where you think you're going to make adjustments, the earlier adjustments with the club?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm still in the exploring phase. So as I said to one of your colleagues just now, for me it's like going into the 4th week almost in preseason. And for me, of course, this period is about getting to know my players and making sure that I have a good perspective of what they can or cannot do and where I am able to help them. So we're still in that phase, and I take it day by day in order to see where the adjustments or the tweaks need to be done.
We'll go with Ronnie, followed by Juan Carlos.
Hi, Coach Pascal. Welcome to New York and
Thank
welcome
you.
to the club. Ronnie from Soccer View Radio. Just my question was, what were your thoughts and initial reactions upon just seeing the NYCFC 2025 schedule, starting off with 2 very tough teams, and then Miami and LAFC on the road, and just really, just how close were you watching MLS prior to, coming to the league? Thank you so much.
Well, the MLS has always been a league that I've been interested in. Otherwise, to be fair, if I didn't know the league or wasn't interested, I would not have considered the step to come here. On the other hand, the schedule is a good...
I'm not going to make...
The schedule question is, I think, a fair question, but it's a very exciting start. Playing against 2 top teams of the league in an early stage of the competition is very challenging, but I've gotten to know my guys that they are up for any challenge, and that's the way to go about it.
Juan Carlos?
Hi, Coach. Thank you for the time. Juan Carlos from Bird Sports Media. Just wanted to ask you real quick, your message to the fans. I know they could be a bit demanding with results. Just quickly, what do you expect, or your message to the fans towards this new season in 2025? Thanks.
Well, the demanding fans is something I love, and I'm looking forward to meeting them, because I think the fans and the fan base in general is a huge part of a club who's trying to grow into the next level and be very successful. So being a successful team, being a successful club requires a fan base who demands a lot. So the high standards that they're looking for is similar to what I'm looking for. So we can shake hands on that one.
We'll go with Adam and followed by Matt.
Hey, Coach, this is Adam with Post 90. Outside of football, is there anything specific that you're looking forward to now that you'll be living and working in and around New York City?
Well, I've been in coaching, in professional coaching for a while now. And what I've taught myself over the years is to enjoy every experience and be able to share my passion at this level with this beautiful club in this beautiful league is something I'm looking forward to. So I'll keep doing that and enjoy the fact that I'm part of this club and this team now, and working in the US is something special. So I'm going to try and enjoy each and every second of it. That is it, basically.
Matt?
Hey, Coach, Matt Mangum, Hudson River Blue. Welcome to New York.
Thank
I
you.
got two questions for you. Number one, how have you adjusted so far to NYCFC and your time with the club? And number two, just it's still early, but you're used to a lot of success in your career. So what are your expectations for this team, what you've seen so far in preseason?
Well, I've been very happy so far with what I've seen from my boys. We've been working really, really hard over the past almost 4 weeks. Minor tweaks and adjustments always made in relation to the games that we're going to play. The guys had to adapt to my philosophy and my approach in coaching and high standards and high demands in training, but they're dealing with it. And we're looking forward to the games always, because then we get the chance to show what we've been working on in order to do that at the highest level possible, and get as close as possible to the level that we're looking for once the league is on its way.
Chris?
Hi, Pascal. Chris Cameron from the outfield again. In this club's short history, they've had 2 head coaches leave in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
As you came on here, you left 6 months into your previous position.
Mm-hmm.
While fans are excited, I think there's also some kind of nerves regarding, especially the calendar in MLS versus Europe and coaches leaving mid-year. I know you mentioned a stadium coming up in 2027, so it sounds like you're looking at this as a long-term project.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of talk about how excited you are for this position, and kind of talk to the fans about your commitment to this team and to this city?
Well, the commitment is there. That's very clear. The club has made a tremendous effort in order to get me here. I was in Hungary for the past 6 months working at Ferencváros, having a good time there, working hard with that team. But once I got into the process of speaking about the project here in New York, I got more excited every time we spoke about this. So for me, of course, it's a long-term goal in order to be successful over a long period with the team. But my main task is to make sure that I improve the team, improve the players, get them to the next level, so we have all the ingredients to become more successful than we've been so far.
All right, we'll do the final 2. Eric on Zoom, and then we'll end with Glenn in person. Eric?
Hey, Coach. Pleasure to meet you. Eric Oyateca.
Nice to meet you, Eric. Yes.
There's been lots of talk of, how young the team is and, your role in helping them develop.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit more on the role that you'll expect from veteran players, specifically someone like Maxi Morales, who re-signed for the club this month, a long servant of the club?
Yeah, interesting question, because I'm happy with the question also, to take away the focus of just the young kids in the squad. People mustn't forget that we have some great experienced players in the squad as well, and Maxi is one of them. But one of your colleagues asked me the question that I expect the same from each and every player. That is the truth. If you're 16 or 17 years of age or 37, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to have impact on the team and make a good contribution to what the team needs in order to perform better. So Maxi is just one example in the team who is, of course, one of the most experienced players within our squad. And I can see on a daily basis already how important he is helping out every player, not just the young players, but every player in order to become that better player and help us be more successful.
And final one, Glenn.
So I'll close, ask you about the younger players. But Julian Fernandez, Ojeda, Ivanic, Carrizo, Johnny Short. What, when you look at those players as a group, do you anticipate they're all going to get a good run in whether it's all 4 games here or leading up to your decision making as you lead into the first weekend? How do you plan to chart that as specific as you can get?
Well, if you look back at the 2 games that we've played already, then you see that everybody has had a part in those matches that we played. I mentioned also earlier that the 22nd of February is priority number 1. So we're molding and shaping a team who's ready to perform on the 22nd of February and go at the league as hard as we can. I don't see any difference in a guy who's 17 or 37. I just look at what the guy can add or what kind of impact he has on the team. I'll give you this example. Johnny has played in the second game in the starting 11 next to Keats, and he did a really good job. So he is showing that what he's capable of in training each and every day that I've seen him go to work. He was capable of transferring that also into the match that he played from the start. But also in game number 1, Johnny was one of the kids who showed that he was capable of dealing with the pressure of playing in the first team, even though it's a friendly game. So he is a good example of our young kids, being one of our young kids who is capable of showing what he can have, what kind of impact he could have on the team. And I can mention almost any of the youngsters having that type of impact. So, so far, I think New York has done a tremendous job bringing these kids from the academy towards the first team. And to close it off, if you look at how much work we've already done in the past 3 to 4 weeks and all the youngsters, and I'm going to knock on wood now, we're still available each and every training and capable of doing what we were asking from them. I foresee a good future for these young kids, and we'll have to see if it's good enough for the run in the MLS, but they will sure have a part in this.
Great. Thank you for your time, boss, and thank
You're
you
welcome.
for everyone for attending today's press conference. We will circle around our assets this evening. And as a friendly reminder, we kick off our Coachella Invitational slate against Sporting Kansas City at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And you'll be able to stream that on nycsc.com and our YouTube channel. And it will also be on linear broadcast television on Channel 9. Thank you, everybody.